Good morning, folks. Gladys here. We've had some pretty bad weather in this area, so our satellites have been kind of messed up, and I haven't always received proper reception to get online, so I've been offline for a couple of days. I kind of want to go off the grid of talking about this will be about my boot camp, but I want to touch on a very serious worldwide problem that has now been recognized as an epidemic, and I'm sure that there's people lobbying for new laws pertaining to it to help individuals that are involved in domestic violence. Now, I came from domestic violence, so our parents, in our household, there was tremendous domestic violence. So it's a learned behavior. You know, if you're beat all your life and fear is instilled in you by the authoritative figure in the household. My mother was the boss. She was the dominant factor in the household, even towards her husband. And if you've been, spanked, let's say, you're supposed to spank your children if they're, disobedient to you. You're supposed to do not spare the rod, it says. It doesn't say beat the living daylights out of them and draw blood, but it does in reference to discipline your children. So there's two definitions to discipline. One is to discipline and by correcting, and the other one is discipline by the individual self-disciplining themselves so that they have self-control and they don't get out of control. So you are self-disciplined. You discipline the way you speak, the way you carry yourself, and you discipline your lifestyle based on your morals and your values, etc. So, under my own personal experience at 17, my mother kicked me out of the house, just flat out kicked me out of the house. It was one less mouth to feed, one less teenager to be bothered with, and she didn't like the boy that I was hanging around with. And today I understand, but at the time at 17, I didn't understand. But he hadn't done anything wrong to me at the point of her kicking me out. So I didn't understand why she was kicking me out. But she picked up on enough, apparently, based on what she knew herself, from her own self, behavior towards dysfunction and domestic violence in her own home. But at the time, I didn't know he was capable of domestic violence. So I was raised in it, and when she kicked me out, I had no place to go. It was 17 and homeless, or 17 and living in his basement, which was an apartment of his parents' home, which they gave permission for me to go to and live. And I had to pay rent. I worked at the time. I had a job. But it soon became, thereafter, domestic violence on behalf of our personal relationship between myself and this so-called boyfriend. And I was forced to do as he said, anytime he said, whatever he said, and he did it the same way my mother did, with fear. Now, once a woman, and I know there's men out there, I'm talking to men and women. There are men out there that put up with domestic violence from their wives, and they are innocent, But for a man to yell domestic violence, my wife's beating me today, I don't think would get a lot of attention, because it's not that prominent in society, and the way our society looks at domestic violence today, which is not serious, I believe. If they would look at it more serious, it wouldn't be at such a epidemic or pandemic volatile state worldwide. And but men do get abused by their wives, and they don't hit back. And it's all out of fear. Okay, the abuser controls the abused by fear. Now, I'm not talking about a slap across the face. I'm not talking about a shove into the couch. That is a form of domestic violence and can lead to far greater rage and escalate to a far greater beating and or contact, physical contact. But I'm talking about a darn right upfront fist punch in the face, you know, continuously to the point of being unconscious, kicked, hit over the head with objects. I got a scar on my skull from my husband hitting me over the head with the telephone because he was on the telephone. And I spoke out of turn, and so he turned around and smacked me right across the head with that telephone and busted a gash open in my head. I had no choice but to go to the ER because it was a gash. There was flesh hanging out, you know. So I don't remember how I explained that at the hospital, but, you know, back 40 years ago, they didn't really question injuries. If you were there, if you came for an injury, you know, how did this happen? I fell, you know. You lie, you tell them, you know, you lied to them because you know if you don't, you're going to get it worse when you get home. So don't ever think or judge somebody you know that is undergoing domestic violence in their environment because they may want to escape, they may want to be free, but it's very hard to get away from the abuser because once you've taken one of those severe beatings and you've suffered a broken rib or fractured jaw or a head concussion, you know that if somehow, some way, truly a miracle, you put an ex parte against this person or you sign a complaint against this person and put them in jail and you don't follow through, you're going to get it again because they will come and find you and they will pull you back into the relationship, back into the home, and you'll get it worse than why you went in the first place to sign your complaint. And I know this from personal experience, okay? The first time that I did this, I worked the night shift. I was probably 18. I had married this guy once we became of age, and we still lived in the basement of his parents' home, and I worked in a hospital's cafeteria preparing the meals for the patients. And I worked the night shift, and so I had to mail. He said, put this in the mail before you go to work. And so our postal service at the time had a U driveway, and at the center of the U was a mailbox where you could put mail in once the post office was closed. But what I didn't know at the time was if you went and drove through to the drive-up window, there was a police car parked there doing radar in the dark. But I didn't see the police car. I didn't see the police car. And what I did was I accidentally ran the car over the curb, not realizing I had a curve. I went straight instead of turning with the curve, and I damaged the vehicle. And instead of going to work, I had to go straight home and tell my husband. And oh my goodness, did I get it. I got it so bad. What happened was the police officer was still there, and I didn't know it, nor did he. But he forced me into the car because he didn't believe what I said. And he made me go back to the driveway of the post office and demonstrate to him what I did. And once I demonstrated what I did, he dragged me out of the car, literally right there on the post office property, and proceeded to beat the living daylights out of me. And then up walks this police officer who was sitting in his car in the dark on the side to radar for the traffic on the main street and put a stop to it. And he said to me, "Ma'am, would you like to press charges against him for violating you?" At the time, that's the way it went. And I said yes, out of being just so fed up of being beat. And I meant yes at the time, because I felt like I had protection. I had a police officer standing by my side, never thinking, duh, that when I get done and go home and he gets out, that police officer isn't going to come home and live with me and protect me for the rest of my life. Never even thought of that. So, of course, I went to the police station. They put him in jail. I signed a complaint and an ex parte, and as I was leaving out the door, the police officer said, "Ma'am, your husband's asking to see you, but you don't have to see him if you don't want to. Do you want to go see him?" So I said, "Sure." I went back there and seen it, and he literally had real tears down his face, crying, begging me, "I'm so sorry. I was just angry because you damaged the car. I didn't mean to hit you. I'll never hit you again. I love you," blah, 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 which made me, feel guilty. And he said, begged, "Please drop these charges. If my mom and dad finds out, blah, 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 blah." So I went to the front of the office and I dropped the charges, and the minute my husband got me in the door, he slammed and locked that door and grabbed a hold of my hair and dragged me to the widest part of the room and proceeded to beat the living daylights out of me. And I screamed and got away from him and ran to the door, and the police officer that arrested him, he apparently knew that I was going to get it. He had come to our place of apartment and was sitting in the parking lot, and when I ran out of the apartment, I was in my pajamas, and I hid in the dark corner underneath the stairs, and here comes my husband out after me, chasing me to bring me back in the house to finish beating the tar out of me. And the police officer said, "Ma'am, go back in the house." And he got a hold of my husband's shirt right here like this and slammed him up against the wall and says, "If I get another call from her or any kind of dispute pertaining to you beating her, you're going to answer to me." And I thought, wow, I've got somebody on my side. But it didn't matter. It didn't matter. It laid cool for a couple of days, and he didn't touch me because he knew this threat from this police officer, and now he knew there was a record of him. But I took that for 4.5 years. 4.5 years, people, after being kicked out from my home as a child. And I stayed in it out of fear. And there was the next incident after that, was the next beating that came about a week later. I got about a week's reprieve of beatings, which was unusual. It gave me time to heal anyway. And I just ran from him. But what he did this time was more violent. He had a gun. He loved guns. And as I ran out the door, he shot the gun, and it went through the bottom of the door. And I ran across the apartment complex, and I hid down in the downstairs alleyway to an apartment, separate apartment building, until he couldn't find me. And then I just proceeded walking up the street. And walking up the street crying, wondering, what am I going to do? What am I going to do, And I just finally went home and took the beating and went to work with a black eye and bruises, hurting, working, and people back then looked away. They looked away. They wouldn't help. Is there anything I can do to help you? There is a support group that you can go to. Here's the number. Call them. You can come to my house tonight, and I'll help you get the help. Never. Nobody. Not even family. My brothers and sisters were all too young and involved in their own domestic disputes from their raising. I mean, when you are raised in domestic violence and you decide not to not to live your life that way, it takes a lot. You have to separate yourself from it, and so I don't blame my family for not intervening. And my mother's retort to me was, "You made your bed, you lie in it," because I did go to my mother. "You made your bed, you lie in it," is what she said. So I thought, well, I've got no choice. Well, my girlfriend at the time, she said, "I'm going to sign up for a self-defense class. Do you want to go with me? I need a partner." I was scared to do it because I knew if he found out I did this, there'd be trouble. And so she talked me into it, and she paid for it because she knew he took my money. When I got my paychecks, went to him. I had to sign them over to him. I was penniless. Never allowed to have a dime. Never allowed to have a friend. If she come over, she had to come over when he was gone. And so I took this class, and when I took this class, I realized that fear is what held me captive in that household, and enabled that violent behavior to continue against me. And so I gained confidence, and I realized I did not have to be beaten. I could do something about it if I chose to. It was nothing but a decision. And the fear was gone because I gained confidence once I learned how to protect myself. You don't know how to protect yourself other than this when you've been beaten. And there's never anybody there to help you, to pick you up, to wipe the blood off of you, to sew up the wounds, to wrap the broken ribs. And you don't go to the doctor because you're ashamed, you're embarrassed, okay? So once I learned through self-defense, confidence in myself that I could. Now, at the time, I only weighed 110 pounds. I was a very tiny person, and I was going on now 19 and 20. And when this self-defense class back 40-some years ago was a tough class. So when you did a flip to your violator, your partner had to take that flip so that you knew what it felt like once you performed this defense against your violator, you know. And it toughened me up. It toughened me up. And at the 6 weeks I graduated, I passed the class, we did well. And this husband at the time, my first husband, he was a severe alcoholic. He was drunk, stoned out of his mind, drunk every day. He drank on the job, and he drank after the job, and he drank until he went to bed. And that's where a lot of this domestic violence came from. And I couldn't shut up. I had a mouth. Felt like I always had to defend myself. So he came home one day after I graduated from this class and proceeded to push me around. And I said, you know, I've been taking a self-defense class for the last 6 weeks, and I just graduated, and I'm here to warn you, if you touch me, I'm going to beat your blah, 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 blah. And I'm not kidding. You will never hit me again. Never. Oh, yeah? And he came at me and pushed me up against the wall. Well, of course, the tactics that I learned in self-defense, before I even knew it, I had him flipped and on top of the coffee table, which was a glass kidney-shaped coffee table, and he was laying right in the middle of all the broken glass. And it made him madder. And he got up to proceed to continue to hit me. And I just beat the living tar out of him through the methods that I learned in self-defense. And then it stopped. Abruptly, it stopped. And he said, I'm calling the police for you abusing me. And I laughed at him. And I said, oh, don't. I'll do it for you. And I picked up the phone and I called the police and I says, we have a domestic dispute at such and such. Would you please come? So here comes the police, and in the meantime, He goes in the bedroom and gets his .357 Magnum loaded and points it right between my eyes and says, if I can't have you, nobody's going to have you, because I had told him I'm divorcing him and I will not stay married to him. And I'm going to kill you. And so I used reverse psychology, and at the time it didn't matter because, if I had to live under this, I was done. I didn't care. And I said, you know what? Am I worth going to jail for? Because the police are on their way. You can hear the sirens. We've called the police. And so if you kill me, they're going to know you killed me. And you're going to go to prison, and you will be living without me. So what do you want to do? You want to sign the papers for a divorce, or do you want to go to prison for the rest of your life? For killing me. Because they're right there at the door. Suit yourself. He put the gun down right there on the table. He went to the door and answered it. It's the police. They come walking in. They see the gun and says, whose gun is this? I said, it's his, and he just threatened to kill me if I left. The police officer took me aside and he said, ma'am, we understand what you're having to live under because we have record of it, and I'm giving you some advice today. Get out from under this and leave now. Well, I couldn't leave now. It was about 5 o'clock in the evening. I had no place to go, and I wasn't going to sleep on the street. So I grabbed a baseball bat. I knew I could defend myself. They took all the weapons out of the house. And so I slept with a baseball bat on the sofa. And the next day, I got a shower, I dressed, and I had one nickel. He had everything. I gave everything up. I walked away from my clothes, brand new beautiful furniture, because we made good money between the two of us, and we had a beautiful house, furniture, everything. Brand new truck. It was, in my name. I left it to him. And I walked away with a nickel in my pocket knowing I had a good job. I took care of private duty, elderly, terminally ill people in their home because they chose to die at home and not in the hospital. Back 40 years ago, that's where it all started. And I called my girlfriend that got me in this self-defense class. She had 2 babies, and she knew what I was under, and I told her what happened, and I said, can I just please have your sofa for 6 weeks? I won't eat your food. I won't touch nothing. I'll do whatever you want. I'll clean your house. I'll wash your clothes. I'll babysit, whatever. No, you can sleep on the couch. I don't want nothing from you. I said, within 6 weeks, I'll be out of here. I called my boss. I said, I want to work 7 days a week, 16 hours a day. Well, I was one of her best caregivers, so she gave it to me. And I saved every dime I had. And I washed my clothes that I had on my back and wore them for 6 weeks every day. And I ate 1 can of Chef Boyardee, because it was 25 cents a can at the time, every day for 6 weeks. Actually, almost a year. Because at the end of 6 weeks, I had enough money to put down for an apartment. I had an efficiency apartment. That's the kind where the bed comes out of the wall. I got a car, and I bought myself a wardrobe and a winter coat with boots, scarf, and a glove, because the winters were hard where I lived at the time. And I didn't have any kind of coat or anything. And then I gradually furnished my apartment, gradually stopped working 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, and went to a regular schedule. And I had paid for my divorce, but he stalked me after that, and I had a mental breakdown. It just was, all I can call it today is a mental breakdown. Did I go to a doctor and a psychiatrist? No. Didn't have insurance at the time, and I wasn't going to pay for it. And I just am a tough. I just fought my way through it. I pursued and persisted, and I'm very strong and strong-willed, and if I set my mind to do something, I do. But, we're human beings, and we can only take so much. So the brain shut down. The brain had a shutdown in my head. Emotionally, I was drained. So I call that an emotional breakdown. And I took a week off from work, and I just rested, and I went and got some groceries, and I properly fed myself, put myself on vitamins because I could afford to then because everything was paid for, and I just got some books and I read and rested for a week, and I went back to normal. And I had him arrested for stalking me and put an ex parte against him, and I never saw him again. So I'm talking to you out there, if you're listening and you're going through this. It's not love. You may have felt loved in the beginning. If you took the blows of abuse and stayed, and it has excelled and become excessive, extreme, daily, very, very violent, get out now. Today, they have programs. Today, when you call the police, if you say, police officer, please take me out of this situation, he will remove you out of the situation, and they will direct you to the programs and the pathway you need to take to get housing for you and your children, if you have children, to get programs so that you can get psychological counseling and you can get training for work so that you can support yourself. They may even provide for you housing. They didn't have that 45 years ago when I needed it. They didn't have that. It was unheard of. You don't have to take it, and you do not have anything to fear. As a matter of fact, I'm talking to you mostly, it's more women that are domestic violence than men, but anyone out there, they're bullies and they're cowards. It takes a coward to beat a woman. It takes a coward for a woman to beat, and it takes a controller. They have to feel the power of control because they're so weak. That's the only thing that they can control, and they do it by force, which makes them a bully. But I'm here to tell you, you can do something about it today. Do something. Not for yourself. Do it for your children if you've got it, because if you raise your children in it, your children are going to just, going to do the same thing. They're going to walk into the same kind of relationship because they don't know any better. They don't know the signs. They only know the character deficiencies that they see as the character of the abuser, and so they reenact. They become enablers. Okay? But if you raise your children, what mommy or daddy is suffering is wrong, and we have to do something about it. And so I want to protect you. We're going to have to go through some changes, and we're going to have to live someplace we may not want to live, but we're going to be protected because this is not the right way to live. We're going to do something about that. And the scripture tells us in Proverbs, oh, doggone it, did I lose it? It tells us that we are to live live quietly, help one another, and to be peacemakers. I lost where I was in that. I had it all picked out. Oh, think highly of them and give them your wholehearted love because they are... No, that's the wrong one. I'll find it. But the Word tells us that we are to live a quiet life, we are to mind our own business, and we are to help one another. But the first person you got to help is yourself. I encourage you, don't wait for him or her to beat you up. If you have been beaten for any length of time, you didn't do anything wrong. That's another thing they use against you. You're this, you're that, you're this, you're that, and they berate you until the point that you feel like you're worthless and it's hopeless. There's no way out. There is a way out. Go to your local police station today. Gather up a diaper bag, a grocery bag, a Walmart bag. Get only what's necessary, your toothbrush, hairbrush, the kids' toothbrushes and hairbrushes, and a change of clothes and diapers if you need it. Fill your diaper bag for your baby, and go to the police station and have an ex parte put against this individual, and go to court and have them put in jail. It's against the law to beat another person, and you have a right to protect yourself. And you don't have to put up with it. Do something about it. Don't be afraid to do it. Because if you don't, you're just going to get another beating. Okay? You're just going to get it. And some women live with it until the day they die, and or the beater kills them. Mine tried to kill me. He tied me to the back of his Harley Davidson hog motorcycle, rum, 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 and run me down the back of a railroad track, trying to put me out of my misery, and then got scared because he couldn't get a pulse or couldn't get a response from me, and dropped me off at the ER, just dropped me off right there, you know. So I'm telling you, folks, if you're being abused, domestic violence is against the law. Go to your local police, call DFS, Family Services, ask where there's housing for domestic violence situations, and do the right thing and get out of it and get away from it so that you can get a life, a good life. Get educated, get a job, support yourself, put your kids in daycare. And he will have to leave you alone. You're going to have some repercussions thereafter, but you know what? It's worse to stay where you're at than it is to get the help that you need that I'm sharing with you. It's harder to stay where you're at than to go through what you got to go through to get out of it. It's harder. I don't know about you, but I'm 62. I'm 62 today, and I suffer physical ailments due to the physical abuse that I took as a child and from my first marriage. After my defense class, no man has ever touched me since then. And if a man ever touches me, he's going to be sorry he ever laid a hand on me. I won't put up with it. He'll have to kill me. It'll be him or me. I won't tolerate it. It's wrong. It's bad behavior. There's a character deficiency there that is serious. And I'm asking you to please step up to the plate, have the courage, believe in yourself, because you're unique and wonderfully made, and you can do something about it. And there are people out there who can help you. Just call your local sheriff's department, police department, abuse hotline, and they'll direct you in the right direction. I highly encourage you to do that today. For anybody that may be listening that is being abused or knows somebody who is being abused, share this information with them. Help them. Reach out and help them to get out of that situation. It takes a lot of courage, but you know what, folks? It's a good thing to help another person get out of that. I've done it several times since then. It's a good thing. So God bless you. I pray that you have the courage to take the steps necessary to stop this abuse upon yourself or one that you know that you love or that you know is being abused. And for you abusers, you know there's help for you too. There's counseling for you too, so that you can stop being the abuser. Y'all have a great day. Bye for now.